Give yourself a pat on the back because you are right here, right now, for a reason. Welcome to the On Purpose podcast, where together we will empower ourselves and others to live lives with more passion and purpose. How you doing this morning, Jared?
I am fantastic, Mr. Ali. I love being here with you. It's definitely one of the highlights of my week, getting to share this time with you and everybody that's following us. And it's rare, I think, to find people that match your energy and challenge you to constantly be better. So I want to thank you for doing that for me and for our community.
Yeah, likewise. I'm happy you took my late night call last night, and sometimes they say that greatness happens at the extremes. So
your late night call led to something awesome. I was dreaming, and in my dream, somebody was like, dude, you guys are number 8 on the podcast app now. The only people ahead of you like Joe Rogan and stuff. So I was like, yep, that's perfect. So I know we're on the right trail because we're dreaming about it. We're seeing it become a reality. And the same thing that we can bring to our audience is helping them find that purpose and passion in their lives and start making what we had dreamed about at one time our actual lives. Yeah, and that's the thing. The only way that we can become successful is if we're truly adding value and other people, our listeners, are taking action to improve their lives. So let's keep doing it, living life with purpose. Today's topic is being perfect. Is perfection a real thing? Is it a myth? Is it better to try and strive for perfection or leave that as a myth? So let's get into it, Jared. Yeah.
What first of all, what's your definition of being perfect? What do you think that is?
Honestly, I think perfect is procrastination. I think trying to be perfect means I'm really not taking action. Because I don't know, as human beings, I can't think of one time I've done anything perfectly in my life. Whether it was a public speaking event, teaching a class, how I handled a relationship. So if I was always looking for perfect and I wasn't going to act until everything was perfect, I wouldn't get a whole lot done. So for me, I equate being perfect to procrastination. What about you?
Well, I think that there's other ways to relate it, because I know, and I've seen people say that I want it to be perfect, but they are working. They are continuously executing, almost frantically executing to try and be perfect. And in that sense, I think for them, a certain level means perfection. So I think it's a double-edged sword. I think that it's something that you should strive for, but that you should never wait to execute because of for a perfect environment.
Yeah, and I think that's two different things, right? I think having a goal or having a mission in life to say, okay, this is what I want to achieve, but I'm going to wait till everything's perfect, is not good. That's procrastination. You're never going to act because nothing will ever be perfect. However, if in your seeking of a perfect life or a perfect career, whatever you're trying to get the best out of something, you're always acting and then reevaluating off where you come up short, I think that's exactly what you're supposed to be doing. So I think it is a double-edged sword, and that perfection, I try to be the best I can be. But I also understand that my perfect best will still have flaws.
Yeah.
And I think perfect isn't an all or nothing thing, right? Being perfect doesn't mean you're flawless, doesn't mean you will never make mistakes. It just means that you're constantly working to improve in those areas.
Right.
And that only comes from action, right? How do you know where your mistakes are? How do you know where your flaws are if you don't take the action to test yourself to see where you come up short?
Do you have experiences or stories that you could share about times to where maybe you were trying to be perfect?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And what happened during those times?
Honestly, usually for me, I, like a lot of people, especially when we were younger, or at least when I was younger, I was like, I'm going to be perfect. I can be perfect at all this. So what I would try something and I came up short, a lot of times I would get discouraged, right? And I wouldn't try it again. I was like, I wasn't very good at that. I'll move on to something else. Instead of realizing that being perfect at something means I'm taking risk, I'm adjusting, learning from my mistakes, then I try again. And then at each time I'm closer to getting it absolutely right, but having some acceptance with myself that I will never truly be perfect. I think that's where I struggled a lot in life, is I wanted to be perfect. I wanted to be the perfect police officer, the perfect husband, the perfect dad. Perfect, perfect, perfect. And what I felt, quite honestly, a lot of times I created my own pressure that didn't need to be there because I was chasing something that was truly elusive, because I'm going to make mistakes. And by trying to be perfect, I put too much pressure on myself. And quite honestly, I didn't act a lot.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because think about it, trying to be perfect is pressure.
Yeah.
Right? But it's not real pressure.
Yeah, you create it.
It's an internal pressure that you create, and you're almost setting yourself up to not reach it, because we know it's damn near impossible to get anything 100% right. Especially if you're involved like we are with relationships with other human beings, coaching other humans, interacting with other humans. Like, we both have faults, we both have flaws. So if I'm trying to be perfect, but my perfect requires you to also be perfect, what are the odds that both of us will be perfect on the same day, at the same moment, and the same task? Not very good.
Very unlikely. You made me think of something like high school football practice, right? Coaches would say things like, practice doesn't make perfect.
Perfect practice makes perfect.
Right, perfect practice makes perfect. And there are metrics that we can measure that may be a perfect week, right? Like, I have an accountability spreadsheet with accountability partners we get on every week, and getting 100%, if you complete all those tasks, that's perfect, right? What do you think about how to use perfection in a positive sense? Because I have met high achievers, very high achieving people who I admire and respect, that claim to be a perfectionist. What do you think about the positive light in perfection and striving for being perfect?
I like it because it means I'm setting my goals high. I'm setting the standards high for myself and how I'm going to conduct myself, how I'll prepare myself, how I'll try to perform. So I want high goals. But then I also have to allow myself time afterwards to assess, see where I came up short, and make adjustments before I try again. There's nothing wrong with wanting to be perfect. There's nothing wrong with wanting to be the absolute best you can be. There is an imbalance if trying to be the best I can be means I don't act at all, because I'm not going to do it unless it's 100%. And I think that brings to an interesting point that I wanted to throw at you all, Lee, is whose perfection are you chasing? And I think that's where a lot of our listeners can really benefit, is whose perfection are they actually chasing? Yours or somebody else's? So, like your example of a football coach. How many times was your idea of a perfect play the same as his?
Yeah, probably not as much.
Not as much. So if you're trying to be perfect for him, what are the odds you're going to get there?
Yeah.
Right? Think, like, football is a great analogy. You got 11 dudes. What are the odds that all 11 will get the perfect block, the perfect snap, the perfect handoff, the perfect cut on the same play all the time?
Super unlikely.
So if you're only basing your success on, I got to get it perfect, and coach says it's perfect, you're probably not going to reach it very often. And I think that's sometimes where we struggle, is we're waiting for perfect on how you view me as perfect. And I'm going to try to be perfect, but I want you to think I'm perfect, instead of accepting it for myself. And that, we talked a lot about mentorship and coaching and guidance, and I think that's where a true coach really makes a difference, is when we set high goals, and if we come up short, we have the ability to look and assess and strategize, okay, what do we need to change to be better next time? Not, well, you weren't perfect, dude, I probably would never try it again.
Mm-hmm. Continuously improving.
That's the game of life. That's what we should always be doing. Now, is it quest for perfection? Absolutely. Like, I want to be the absolute best at everything I do. Understanding that I'm taking risk, and with that, I'm learning along the way. So my perfect today is better than yesterday, but it won't be as good as my perfect tomorrow. And I think when you have that mindset that perfect is always evolving and moving and you're never actually going to get there, it makes the journey fun because I know, okay, I'm better yesterday than I was today. Or I'm better today than I was yesterday, sorry. And I'm going to be better tomorrow than today. Okay, so what do I got to do? Versus sitting there going, I wasn't perfect on Sunday, so I'm not even going to give Monday a shot. So let me ask you that, Ollie. How do you bounce back when because you have high goals, you're a high achiever for sure. What do you do when you come up short of being perfect? What's your strategies on handling that?
Well, coming up short in negative emotions, negative energy, I embrace them. I let them play their course, right? I've learned that if I try to suppress and get out of that downtime too quickly, that it's suppressed and then it comes up stronger later. So I'll really analyze if I came up short. Why did I come up short? Really evaluate everything. And I think to further my definition of being perfect, I really like the term being perfectly imperfect, right? Embracing the mistakes, embracing the challenges, and embracing the times when you're down. I've been down a lot, but I'm never out. I don't consider failures. Failure really isn't I don't look at anything as a failure because I can grow from it. Even if I was in the worst deal, the worst relationship, whatever it was, I'm going to learn from that and grow. So for me, when I come up short, I embrace whatever negative thoughts, negative things are in my head about coming short, and then I adjust and continue moving forward. I think that the one thing about being perfect, I would say, that I would want our listeners to take away is that, at least in my experience, I've learned that there's really no such thing, right? There's always room for improvement. You can always be a little bit better, a little bit faster, a little bit higher energy, whatever it is. You can define something that you would consider perfect, but there's always room to improve. So
let me ask you that. I want to follow up because you hit on something that I think is very important for people to understand. When you come up short of being perfect, it stings, right? It hurts. That's good. It meant you cared enough about what you're doing that not getting it to your best of your ability hurts you. So when you talked about like making changes, tweaking, looking at your performance, there's two things that really come into making to an end result. Things you control and variables you don't have control over. So how do you separate those as you're reassessing to engage, or do you have a thought on how to process, okay, I came up imperfect, I didn't reach my goal, I got to make changes. How do you separate what you can control from what you can't?
How do you separate it? Well, I think at least for me, there's one thing that I always know I can control, and that's my work ethic, right? That's my execution. I can control that. There's a lot of variables that I can't control, but I don't worry about being perfect. I execute because I know that even if it's shitty execution, I'm going to get the feedback. I'm going to learn and I'm going to grow from that. So I'm more focused on hyper executing as opposed to making sure it's the perfect thing. And so many people so many people try and make sure that it's the perfect thing they're going to do before they do it, and then they get paralyzed in fear, and then they don't do it. So I make sure that my work ethic, that my production is, like right now I'm rereading the book 10X Rule by Grant Cardone. I read it years ago, and for whatever reason popped in my head, and literally just trying to 10X my output and outwork everyone with the execution. We're so concerned about what others think, to where we're worried for the perfect thing to say or the perfect picture. How many editing apps are out there? I recently just learned that people have these apps that literally like touch up your face. You can adjust, you know, Photoshop on steroids. All these people have these apps to make the perfect post, the perfect hashtags, the perfect this. And I'm just like, post, go. You know, execution. I'm going to get the feedback, and hyper execution over wasting time for perfection. So I know that I can control that. I can control my output. But I think the things that I can't control, I don't really waste that much time and energy with them, because they're not in my control. So that's how I keep them separate, is just knowing what I can control and hyper executing on that.
Yeah, and I love that. There's something I tell everybody I coach, and that I'm a firm believer in. I control two things at all times: the attitude I show up with, and how hard I'm willing to work. Mm-hmm. Period. I don't control anything else. I don't control if it's going to rain today. I don't control if the people I'm interacting with had the worst night ever. I don't control any of their emotions, but I 100% control how I feel, how I show up, and how hard I'm willing to work.
Yeah, I will say that I do think sometimes you're not in control of your attitude or how you feel. I think that sometimes emotions will just arise. You know, like you were talking about some Mondays, like you don't know why, but you're just down, and that's going to happen. That's going to happen no matter who you are, no matter how high achieving you are. Sometimes that voice in your head is going to be like, dude, you ain't doing shit. You need to pick your shit up. You ain't shit, whatever. Yeah. And I think that it's important to realize too that we can't 100% control our attitude and emotions all day, every day, 24/7. Sometimes, for whatever reason, sometimes no reason, we'll have emotions that just arise.
Yeah, and what I mean by controlling my attitude and my effort, for sure, where I can always outwork somebody. Like, that's my choice: either work hard or give up, work hard or play it safe. But I do control my attitude, even if my attitude that day is of doubt, is discouragement. By accepting it and being like, okay, Mondays suck for me for some reason. How do I strategize to keep myself out of this spot? Is how I'm taking control of it. Because I think for too many of us, we kind of, whatever attitude we have, whatever we wake up with, we just kind of accept and go and see what the day brings us. So I do believe I control it. And that doesn't mean it's always sunshine and rainbows. I have bad days just like everybody else. But when I have those, I accept it. And I realize, okay, why do I feel this way? There must be a purpose for why do I feel down on Mondays. Maybe it's because, I didn't feel productive over the weekend. Maybe it's because at the beginning of Monday I had a financial call and I haven't made any money on Mondays. I get paid on Fridays. So maybe I strategically need to move my finance call to Friday, where I feel good about Monday and not on Monday where I feel the pressure to earn. You know what I mean? So by that, I am controlling my attitude. It doesn't mean I compartmentalize it and don't allow myself to have all the range of emotions, because I want those. But at the same point, I want a game plan on them. And I know, okay, how can I make my Mondays better? Well, I can't have this big drop in my energy, so how do I fix that? Well, maybe I got to strategically place something here. Maybe I need to move my podcast to Monday instead of Tuesday, so I kickstart Monday with this audience and with the energy that gets me going. But I'm taking control, and that's what I'm saying by controlling your attitude. I think too many of us allow the external world, the highs, the lows, to dictate how we're going to feel. And I want to say, no, you can control that. Doesn't mean you're always going to feel great, but even when you don't feel great, let's figure out why. And then make some changes.
And the mind is such a powerful thing that even on those days where you wake up and you're not feeling that perfect feeling, that ability to execute, like you're saying, if you put the right attitude and decide that, hey, I'm gonna be relentless, I'm gonna execute regardless of how I'm feeling, whatever emotions are arising. To me, that's being perfect. That's being perfect in the moment. When you can take control of that mental strength and the attitude that you have.
Right. And even though I didn't feel great yesterday, I still got shit done. I still went through my list of things I knew I had to get done, so I accomplished something. So now, and it's funny, my wife even tells you, like, my energy at 9 o'clock on Monday night is 1,000 times more ready to go than at 9 o'clock in the morning on Mondays. And so I gotta accept, okay, why is Monday morning so heavy for me, but by the night I feel light on my toes? And I'll analyze it, but it doesn't paralyze me. I don't wake up and just go, okay, Monday sucks, so I'm not going to do anything on Monday. I'm not going to take any action. I'm just going to sit and feel sorry for myself. I'm going to sit and question why I do everything I do. No, like, okay, I've been struggling on Monday, so next week I'll make a change, and I'll see if that makes my Monday better. If that doesn't work, I'll tweak something else. But I'm allowing myself to be like, okay, Monday's not good. It's not your fault my Monday doesn't feel good. I got to figure it out. And that's the quest of being perfect, right? Being honest with yourself, not blaming everybody else, and realizing I control my attitude. So if my energy's low on Monday, if I don't feel like doing the things I know I'm supposed to do on Mondays, but I love it on Tuesday, and by Friday I wish I had 2 more days to get more shit done, how do I capture that on Monday? It's possible. Right, that's why perfect is possible if you're always tweaking, rearranging, analyzing. But you have to be honest with yourself. And if I could tell people out there listening, and Ali and I, this is one of my favorite things about our relationship is we're very honest with ourselves and with each other. That helps because I can't come in and fake it to you. And we've talked about Circle of Five. We talked about self-accountability. This community is one where I want people to show up and realize, like, you're not going to fake your way through purposeful life. It's called on purpose for a reason. It means I purposely want him to be like, dude, you dropped the ball. Dude, like, we got to step up our game. Because I know he's invested in me as a person. And he wants what's best for me, and we want what's best for all of you guys that are in our community, which is why we do what we do.
So what would you say to our listeners who see themselves as a perfectionist, whether or not they're the type of perfectionist who is paralyzed by fear because they want to be perfect, or perhaps a type of perfectionist who is always executing but always, picking the little details, trying to make it perfect? What advice would you give to our perfectionist listeners?
I would tell you guys, get to work, man. Like, I've been around perfectionists, and it's crazy to me. Like, it's literally, I can think of 1,000 times that we had a Word document we had to create, and a perfectionist, like, every freaking period would have to be in the same line. Like, and I'm like, dude, let's get it out already. Because guess what? There's mistakes in this. There's things that your audience is going to tell you that need to be changed, but until you get it to them, you won't even know the feedback. So while you're focused on being perfect, I've thrown out 3 rough drafts and gotten so much feedback. So if you're trying to be perfect, the best way to be perfect is to act, fail, self-assess, try again. Period. That's what literally you're seeing us chase perfection, and we fall flat on our face. But because we act, we learned, well, I fell down because I didn't tie my shoe. So now we tie our shoe, and then we try again. And then we fall down because we tripped over a rock. But we didn't even know the rock was in the road until we start running. But how many of us try to be perfect or use perfect as an excuse to do nothing? And that's what I see a lot of. Well, I'm waiting for the perfect time to have a kid. Never. I want the perfect wedding. Never. Right? They quit waiting to be perfect to act. Because I 100% believe perfect for many people means procrastination.
Yeah, because there's not really such a thing. I mean, you can define what perfection is, and like we were saying, you get 100% perfect score or whatever, but essentially there's no perfect, there's no balance, right? We were just talking about how you're always counterbalancing. Life is a balancing act. One week you may be super hyper executing on work and your health and everything, and hey, the next week you go on vacation and miss the gym and we're drinking and you missed out on your health. But perfection is realizing that you're perfectly imperfect, that you're continuously balancing that. How about people who maybe need to pay a little bit more attention to detail, and maybe are too much on the just execute and maybe need a little bit to strive for perfection a little bit more?
Yeah. Well, I think that comes from not allowing yourself to be mediocre, right? Just setting a goal like I'm going to be the best I can be, and the best that I'm capable of being is different than your best. Like we all have different ceilings, but it doesn't excuse not putting in your best effort. And I think we all know when you do something, you're like, I could have done that better, but I just got it done. Right? Like, we got to avoid that. And one of the things I'd really love to stress is for all of those listeners out there that are raising kids, make sure your kids know they don't have to be perfect. Right? Sometimes we unintentionally put so much pressure on our young adults to be perfect. And the biggest thing I can think of is how many times, especially like if somebody gets to their junior, senior in high school and they get introduced to an adult, almost the first question everybody asks this young person is, what are you going to do after high school? They don't know. I didn't know. You didn't know. The person asking the question didn't know. I don't know hardly anybody that knows what their life is supposed to be. But we kind of unintentionally create this like facade that they should know what their life's going to be. So if you're a parent, I would encourage you to make sure you talk to your kids that being perfect means you're imperfect. It means you try and you fail and you adjust and you get up, but that we don't put this unrealistic expectation that our kid has to be perfect, because they're not going to be. And I want them to not be perfect. I want them to make mistakes, because then I know they're learning and growing. The last thing I want is my kids to try to be so perfect that they take no action in life. And they live life trying to be perfect for dad, and it's not their true life.
Yeah. Yeah, and just a reminder that we don't grow through praise and that perfect score and the wins. We don't grow through that. We grow through the adversity, the challenges, the losses, and the failures. I mean, think about what happens when someone gets broken up with or dumped, right? They go to the gym, they lose all this weight, they change their life. Or when someone gets fired, then they start a new business and a career. And I heard this quote the other day: "Massive success is the best revenge." You know, typically, high-level action and execution comes from failure, from imperfections, from being hurt. Michael Jordan got cut from his high school basketball team. Look what that did to him. You know, best basketball player in history. There's so many stories like that that are replicated, coming up from true adversity and failures and challenges, and not reaching perfection is typically when you have the most growth. So.
Well, I want to ask you, Ollie, for our audience, because we're going to ask them this in the purposeful practice. I want to know, what would you be doing if you didn't have to be perfect and you knew that nobody was going to judge you or laugh at you? Would you be doing anything different?
I don't think I would. I don't think I would, because I challenge myself every day, and I move into fear every day with stuff that I post, stuff that I share, interviewing strangers about gratitude. It's still uncomfortable, and I know that there's people out there who laugh and judge. I know there is, but I've done it for so long now that I won't say that I don't care at all, but I will say that I don't care nearly as much as I used to.
You don't care enough to not act.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, some things I would be doing if I wasn't so invested, like in my company and stuff, is I'd probably do some childhood goals and try and be a WWE wrestler or an actor. some type of performing.
I could see that for sure. I love when you go into your character mode in your vlogs,
Yeah,
in your videos. Those are so hilarious.
yeah, I have a lot of fun with that. How about you? Same question. So
If I didn't have to be perfect and nobody was going to judge or laugh at me, I mean, I feel like today I'm doing exactly what I want to be doing. Like, this is literally the life I wanted. I got up and I journaled and I meditated with my son, and we're working on his mind frame. So I love being invested in helping him move forward through meditation and mindfulness. And I get to go to Denver and do some stuff with law enforcement across the state. So, like, this is my ideal stuff. And then I get to come back and I'll coach at the gym and I'll get to work out with some of my buddies. So, like, it's perfect. So what would I have done? I would have tried this about 20 years ago. I would have tried to really be who I was supposed to be in my 20s, because I always knew I could do more than what I was doing, but I got comfortable. And I don't look back and regret it, because, I was married. Andrea and I are coming up on our 20th anniversary. We got 3 great kids. We got a lot of things we've been able to do in life, but I never felt like I was at my true potential. I never felt like I was running at, max RPMs. I knew I had cruise control on for part of my life.
Yeah.
Which is why now I'm so I was imperfect, right? I knew I was capable of here, and I was only performing here, but I was aware enough later in life to be like, okay, I've accomplished some things. I got some things set up. Now it's time to throw the dice and see what we can really do to get to where I live at my full potential.
Yeah, and you were there in your 20s only because it was a part of your story to build who you are today.
For sure, and I think that's a huge part that we can share, is being imperfect means I accept my imperfections. I accept the fact that I had to learn some lessons in life the hard way. I accept the fact that I wasn't always my best, but I don't allow that to dictate that I can't be in the future.
Right. You are not your past.
No.
We are not our past. The past is the same thing as a dream, literally.
Yeah. So I love it, man. I literally, besides Mondays, for whatever reason, I am literally living the life I always envisioned right now. Coaching, investing in others, making myself better, freedom of time, freedom of finances. Now with that comes a lot more pressure that sometimes gets out of balance for me. But no, this is exactly what I'm going to be doing. And I want our audience to make sure when you do your purposeful practice, email that in, share that with us. We got some extremely humbling and powerful messages from the last couple podcasts, and we can't tell you how grateful we are that you trust us enough to share with us, that you trust us enough to come along this journey with us. And I want you guys to know we work hard behind the scenes to make sure we live up to everything you expect of us.
Yeah, same feeling here. It's really humbling and inspires and motivates me to bring content that's valuable, that helps our listeners grow, but it helps us grow too. Hearing back from the On Purpose community really helps me grow. So I have a lot of gratitude and want to thank our listeners for that, for submitting your purposeful practice, because it helps us grow. And the biggest takeaway that I want our listeners to take away from this Being Perfect episode is that you're already perfect. You're already perfect. There's no other person.
No other you.
There's no other you. You literally, your makeup is no other being has ever been your specific walk, your specific talk, your specific look, your teeth, your eyes, everything. You are perfectly you, so execute and don't worry about the perfection. You're already perfectly you, and I encourage you to not worry about perfection and then just execute, just get it done, just act.
Yeah, you're never going to be perfectly somebody else. They're already their perfect self. I will never be perfectly Ali. I'll be the perfect me, and together we'll complement each other. So don't spend your time trying to be perfect for anybody else. Be your perfect self. And with that, that means you have flaws, you have ups, you have downs, highs and lows, and that's all great, because that is who we're supposed to be. And we've talked about this before. Our story is really our superpower. My imperfections are really my strengths. It's what makes me unique. It's what makes you guys unique. It makes you unique, and it makes the world a lot more fun. So let's get out this week. Let's really invest in ourselves, accept the good and the bad of ourselves, set high goals because I want us to achieve, and then act. Reassess, act again. And perfection is a constant pursuit that we need to chase day to day because we should never truly get there.
Amen. Let's set those goals high and then set them higher and then higher again, because if you fall short, guess what? You're back to that original goal. So let's keep it going. So we got the practice this week. Get it done. Get it done. Email it to us. We will respond. At this point of the podcast, this is free coaching. Jared and I literally take time to think, answer your practice, and ask you questions, dig deeper, and help you live life with more passion and purpose. So here's the practice for this week. Take inventory of how many times you have kept yourself from doing something because you were trying to be perfect. Write down a few examples. What did I not do because I was trying to be perfect? Part 2. Take inventory of the time that you spend critiquing yourself and not moving forward. How much time are you spending thinking about the past? Oh, I did this, and you're not moving forward. And then number 3, what would you do if you didn't have to be perfect, nobody's going to judge you, and nobody's going to laugh? What would you be doing? And of course, the last step and the most important step is have some accountability and send that to us for feedback.
Yeah, onpurpose.official@gmail.com. We will answer and share that with you. And at some point, we'd like to start sharing some of our viewer feedback on the podcast, just because I think we can learn from each other's experiences. So we got a lot of cool stuff we're developing as this podcast continues to go. It's hard to believe this is episode 21 already.
21.
Which means what? We've been imperfectly perfect, but we've been executing. It's 21 episodes in 4 months or 3.5 months. That means every week we're tweaking. You're seeing changes in production. You're seeing changes in microphones, equipment, personality. You're seeing us do exactly what we're telling you guys to do. We want to have the perfect podcast, but we're not going to sit back and wait until we develop it to launch it. We're going to keep making adjustments on the go, and that's what we want from you guys.
Yeah, if you guys look at some previous episodes, there's been a lot of imperfection, so trust me, we're not perfect.
No, but we're going to keep chasing it, and as a community, there's plenty of room for all of us to get it together. So we want to thank you guys for being here. Remember, team, life is far too short to live any other way than on purpose. Thank all of you that joined us live on Facebook. If you have questions, throw them in the comments. We'll be glad to get to them here shortly. And go out and make this week the best you can. And remember, you are perfectly imperfect.